The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Judge Raymond Chun presided from behind an oak bench, looking bored as my sister's attorney droned on about undoing influence and mental incapacity for the third consecutive day. My sister Victoria sat at the plaintiff's table in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her posture perfect, her expression appropriately grieved. Beside her, her attorney Marcus Webb shuffled through documents with the confidence of a man who'd already won. I sat alone at the defendant's table. No attorney. I'd told the court I'd be representing myself, which had made Judge Chun raise his eyebrows, but not object. "Your Honor," Marcus said, standing. "The evidence is clear. Eleanor Hartley was 87 years old at the time she changed her will. Her medical records show she was experiencing cognitive decline. She was on 6 medications for various ailments, and yet, somehow, in the last year of her life, she decided to disinherit her eldest daughter, my client, in favor of her youngest granddaughter." He gestured toward me without actually looking at me. Ms. Kate Hartley, age 33, who conveniently moved in with Eleanor during her final years and had exclusive access to her finances and her decision-making. Victoria dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. She'd been doing that all morning. Dabbing, not actually crying, just creating the appearance of tears. "The will in question," Marcus continued, pulling out a document, "leaves the entirety of Eleanor Hartley's estate valued at approximately $3.4 million, including property, investments, and personal assets to Kate Hartley. Meanwhile, Victoria Hartley, Eleanor's only child, receives nothing." Judge Chun looked at me. "Ms. Hartley, you're representing yourself. Do you have a response to these allegations?" I stood. "Yes, Your Honor." My grandmother was of completely sound mind when she updated her will. She made her decision based on who actually cared for her, not who felt entitled to her money. "That's a serious accusation," Judge Chun said. "It's the truth. My sister Victoria visited our grandmother twice in the 5 years before her death. I moved in with her and cared for her full-time for 3 years. Because you manipulated her," Victoria said, her voice breaking. "You isolated her from her family." "Order," Judge Chun said mildly. "Ms. Webb, continue." Marcus pulled out another document. "Your Honor, I have here the affidavit from Dr. Patricia Morrison, Eleanor Hartley's physician of 20 years. Dr. Morrison states that in her medical opinion, Eleanor was experiencing significant cognitive decline in her final years, including memory loss, confusion, and impaired judgment." He handed the document to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. Judge Chun read it carefully. "This is concerning." "Your Honor," I said, "Dr. Morrison saw my grandmother twice a year for routine checkups. I saw her every single day. I can provide documentation prepared by you." Marcus interrupted. "Convenient, isn't it? The only evidence of Eleanor's supposed mental competency comes from the person who stands to inherit everything. I have witnesses, you have friends and neighbors who occasionally saw Eleanor during her good moments. What we have is medical testimony from a licensed physician." Judge Chun set down the affidavit. "Ms. Hartley, do you have any medical documentation supporting your grandmother's mental capacity?" "I have her journals. Letters she wrote. Conversations we recorded hearsay," Marcus said smoothly. "None of that constitutes medical evidence." I felt the case slipping away. 3 days of Marcus painting me as a manipulative opportunist, while Victoria played the grieving daughter who'd been robbed of her inheritance. Never mind that Victoria had called our grandmother a burden when she fell and broke her hip. Never mind that Victoria had suggested we put her in a state facility because she is too expensive to care for. Never mind that when Grandma Eleanor asked Victoria to visit for her 85th birthday, Victoria had been in Monaco with her third husband. "Your Honor," Marcus said, "we believe the evidence clearly shows that Eleanor Hartley lacked the mental capacity to make sound decisions regarding her estate. We're asking the court to void the 2021 will and reinstate the previous will from 2016, which appropriately leaves the estate to Eleanor's only child." Judge Chun looked at me. "Miss Hartley, do you have anything else to present before I make my ruling?" This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. I stood. "Your Honor, I'd like to ask the court a question." Proceed. Has this courtroom been cleared for classified information? The room went silent. Judge Chun's expression changed. Excuse me? I'm asking if this courtroom has the appropriate security clearance to discuss classified government operations. Marcus laughed. Your Honor, this is absurd. Miss Hartley is clearly grasping at straws. I'm asking, I said calmly, because my grandmother's estate includes materials that are still classified under federal law. If I'm required to explain why she left everything to me instead of to my sister, I'll need to reference those materials. Victoria's face had gone pale. Judge Chun leaned forward. Ms. Hartley, what are you talking about? I pulled a folder from my bag. Inside was a single document heavily redacted, stamped with official seals. My grandmother, Eleanor Hartley, worked for the State Department from 1963 to 1994. Her official record shows she was a cultural attaché, stationed in various embassies throughout Eastern Europe during the Cold War. I slid the document across to the bailiff. That was her cover identity. Her actual work was significantly more classified. Judge Chun picked up the document. His eyes widened as he read the letterhead, Central Intelligence Agency. Your grandmother was CIA? He asked quietly. For 31 years, she ran intelligence operations in Poland, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, and the Soviet Union. Most of her service record is still classified. What is UNT classified is the fact that she was awarded the Intelligence Star in 1989 for operations I am not permitted to discuss. I pulled out another document. This is from the CIA's Office of General Counsel. It confirms that certain materials in Eleanor Hartley's possession remain classified and are subject to federal protection. Marcus was on his feet. Your Honor, this is irrelevant to the question of mental capacity. It's completely relevant, I said. Because my grandmother didn't just leave me her estate. She left me materials that require security clearance to access. She couldn't leave those materials to someone who didn't understand their significance. And you have security clearance? Judge Chun asked. I do. I work for the National Security Archive at George Washington University. I have top secret clearance. My sister Victoria works in real estate in Miami. She has no clearance, no background in intelligence, no understanding of what our grandmother actually did. Victoria was gripping the edge of the table. Your Honor, I continued, my grandmother's estate includes a safety deposit box that hasn't been opened. It also includes a sealed vault in her garden. Both contain classified materials related to her service. The will specifies that only someone with appropriate clearance can access these materials. A vault? Marcus said weakly. In the garden. Yes. A garden vault, installed in 1995 after my grandmother retired. It contains documents, photographs, recorded conversations, and other materials related to operations she participated in. Some of it is still classified under Executive Order 13,526. I turned to look directly at my sister. Victoria, do you know what Operation Nightshade was? The water glass in her hand slipped. It hit the table and shattered, water spreading across the wood surface. Judge Chun stood up. We're taking a recess. Bailiff, please escort Ms. Hartley both. Ms. Hartley's in 2 separate rooms. I need to make some phone calls. I sat in a small conference room for 45 minutes before the bailiff returned. Judge wants to see you in chambers. Alone. I followed him down a hallway to Judge Chun's office. Inside, the judge sat behind his desk. On the phone, he gestured for me to sit. Yes, he was saying. I understand. Yes, I have her here now. Thank you. He hung up and looked at me for a long moment. I just spoke with the CIA's Office of General Counsel. They confirmed everything you said. Eleanor Hartley was an intelligence officer. Her service record is classified, and there are materials in her estate that fall under federal protection. Yes, Your Honor. They also confirmed that you have appropriate clearance to access those materials. Your sister does not. That's correct. Ms. Hartley, why didn't you mention any of this in the first 3 days of this trial? Because I wanted to see how far my sister would go. I wanted to see if she'd tell the truth about why she really wants the estate. Which is money. Just money. She has no idea who our grandmother actually was. She has no idea what sacrifices Grandma Eleanor made. She just sees $3.4 million and thinks she deserves it because she's the daughter. Judge Chun was quiet for a moment. What is Operation Nightshade? I can't tell you that, Your Honor. It's still classified. But you know what it is. My grandmother told me. Before she died, she told me a lot of things. I paused. She told me because I asked, because I cared enough to understand who she was, not just what she was worth. And your sister never asked? My sister called her a burden. Suggested we put her in state care, didn't visit for years at a time. I met his eyes. She doesn't deserve to inherit secrets she never cared enough to learn. Judge Chun stood up. I need to review this information. We'll reconvene in 1 hour. When we returned to the courtroom, Judge Chun looked tired. I've reviewed the materials presented by Ms. Kate Hartley, he said. I've spoken with federal authorities, and I've reached a decision. Victoria sat rigidly in her chair. The evidence shows that Eleanor Hartley was not just an elderly woman with diminishing mental capacity. She was a retired intelligence officer with ongoing obligations to protect classified information. Her decision to leave her estate, including materials subject to federal protection, to her granddaughter, Kate Hartley, was not only sound, it was necessary. Marcos Estud. Your Honor, even if Eleanor Hartley had classified materials, that doesn't explain why she would disinherit her only child. It explains everything, Judge Chu interrupted. Eleanor Hartley needed to ensure her materials went to someone with appropriate clearance and understanding, someone who knew what they were and why they mattered, someone who had proven they cared about her legacy, not just her money. He looked at Victoria. Ms. Victoria Hartley, the record shows you visited your mother twice in 5 years. You suggested institutionalizing her. You were absent during her final illness, and you have absolutely no background or clearance to handle the sensitive materials in her estate. Victoria's face was red. Meanwhile, Kate Hartley moved in with her grandmother, provided full-time care, obtained security clearance specifically to help Eleanor manage her classified materials, and clearly had a relationship with her grandmother that extended beyond financial interest. Judge Chun picked up his gavel. The will is valid. The estate goes to Kate Hartley, as Eleanor Hartley intended. This case is dismissed. The gavel came down. Victoria screamed. Actually screamed. This is bullshit. She manipulated you. She manipulated everyone. Ms. Hartley, Judge Chun said sharply, you need to control yourself or I'll hold you in contempt. She doesn't deserve that money. I'm her daughter. I'm her only child. And yet you treated her like a burden, while your niece treated her like a person. The court has ruled. The decision is final. Marcus was already packing his briefcase, knowing when a case was lost. Victoria turned to me, her face twisted with rage. You planned this. You manipulated her into telling you classified information so you could use it against me. I didn't manipulate anyone, I said calmly. I loved her. I listened to her. I cared about who she was, not what she had. You're lying. There's no vaults. There's no Operation Nightshade. You made it all up. Judge Chun looked at her with something like pity. Ms. Hartley, I spoke with the CIA. They confirmed everything. Your mother was a hero who served her country for over 3 decades, and you didn't even know. Victoria grabbed her purse and stormed out, Marcus hurrying after her. I sat there in the empty courtroom, feeling nothing but relief. That evening, I drove to my grandmother's house. My house, now, legally. It was a modest colonial in suburban Virginia, with a garden that my grandmother had tended for 30 years. Rose bushes, hydrangeas, a small vegetable patch, and, hidden beneath the garden shed, a steel vault door disguised as a drainage cover. I unlocked it with the key my grandmother had given me 3 years ago when she first started talking about her past. Kate, she'd said, sitting in her reading chair, the afternoon light making her look younger than 8. I need to tell you some things. Some of them I shouldn't tell you. Some of them I'm legally prohibited from telling you. But I'm old, and I'm dying, and you're the only person who's ever cared enough to ask. I'd listened for 3 years. Stories of dead drops in Prague, coded messages in Warsaw, a defector she'd helped escape from Bucharest, operations that changed the course of the Cold War in ways that would never be publicly acknowledged. She'd told me because I'd asked. Not about her money, not about her will, but about her life. Who were you? I'd asked one day, when she was showing me photos from her time in Berlin. Someone who mattered, she'd said quietly. Someone who made a difference. Someone who gave up a normal life to serve something bigger. Do you regret it? Not for a second. But I regret that your mother never wanted to know. I tried to tell her after I retired. She said she didn't care about old spy stories. Said it didn't matter anymore. It matters to me. I know, sweetheart. That's why you're here. Now, descending the ladder into the vault, I understood what she'd meant. The vault was small, maybe 8 by 10 feet, climate-controlled and organized with military precision. Filing cabinets lined one wall, sealed boxers lined another, and on a small desk sat a letter with my name on it. I opened it. Dear Kate, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've won the court case. I knew Victoria would contest the will. I knew she'd claim I was incompetent. That's why I left all of this, not just the money, but the truth. You asked me once why I never told Victoria about my work. The truth is, I tried. When she was 20, after I retired, I sat her down and tried to explain what I'd done. She looked at me with such contempt and said, "Mom, that's ancient history. Nobody cares about the Cold War anymore." But you cared. You asked questions. You wanted to know not just what I did, but why I did it. You wanted to understand the sacrifices, the missions, the choices that shaped history in ways that will never be in textbooks. This vault contains 31 years of my life. Some of it is classified, and will stay classified until I've been dead for 50 years. Some of it can be shared, and I want you to share it. Donate it to the National Security Archive. Let historians understand what we did. How we fought a war without firing shots. How we won battles no one will ever know about. The $3.4 million is yours. It. We sell it, buy a house, travel, live the normal life I never could. But more importantly, tell my story. Tell people that Eleanor Hartley mattered. That she served her country. That she made a difference. And tell Victoria if she ever asks that she could have known me. All she had to do was care enough to listen. I love you, Kate. Thank you for seeing me as more than just your grandmother. Thank you for understanding who I really was. Stay safe. Protect the secrets that need protecting. Share the stories that deserve telling. All my love. Grandma Eleanor. I sat in that underground vault and cried, not sad tears. Just tears of love and loss and the overwhelming weight of being trusted with someone's truth. 6 months later, the estate settlement was final. The house was mine. The accounts were mine. The vault and everything in it was mine. I donated the declassified portions of my grandmother's materials to the National Security Archive where I worked. We were building an exhibit, Silent Warriors, Women in Cold War Intelligence. My grandmother would be one of the featured officers. Her photo from 1967, serious, standing in front of the American Embassy in Prague would be the centerpiece. I was working with a CIA historian to determine what could be shared and what needed to remain sealed. It was a delicate process, but we were making progress. Victoria had tried to appeal the court's decision. Her appeal was denied. She'd sent me emails, angry ones at first, then pleading ones, then angry again. I didn't respond to any of them. What I did do was send her a copy of our grandmother's service, record the declassified version, the one that showed 31 years of postings in dangerous places. The commendations, the awards that would never be publicly displayed. She never responded. My mother, Victoria's younger sister, who'd moved to California and rarely contacted anyone, called me after hearing about the court case. I didn't know Mom was CIA, she said, her voice small. She tried to tell you. Multiple times. I know. I just I thought it was old lady stories, exaggerations. I didn't think it was real. It was very real. What was Operation Nightshade? I can't tell you that. It's still classified. A pause. But you know what it was. Grandma told me. Because I asked? Because I cared. I should have cared more. Yes, you should have. We didn't talk much after that. Some regrets can't be fixed with a phone call. 1 year later, the exhibit opened on a Tuesday. Silent Warriors, Women in Cold War Intelligence, featured 12 female officers who deserved the CIA during the Cold War. Women who'd operated in hostile territory, women who'd recruited assets, ran operations, changed history. My grandmother's section was the largest. There were photos. Eleanor at various ages, in various cities, always professional, always composed, always serving. There were declassified documents. Operation summaries with most details redacted, but enough visible to show the scope of her work. There was a video interview I'd recorded with her 2 years before she died, where she talked about what it meant to serve, to sacrifice, to keep secrets that could never be told. And there was a placard with a quote from her retirement speech. That had been delivered behind closed doors to a room of intelligence professionals, but had been declassified after her death. I gave 31 years to this work. I missed birthdays and holidays. I lied to everyone I loved about where I was and what I was doing. I lived in constant danger in countries that would have killed me if they'd known who I really was, and I would do it all again. Because some things are worth sacrificing for. Freedom is worth it. Democracy is worth it. Peace is worth it. Primera did my part, I kept my secrets, and I'm proud of that. The exhibit opened to the public that afternoon. Historians came, retired intelligence officers came, students came, and standing in the back, trying to be inconspicuous, was Victoria. I saw her from across the room. She was staring at our grandmother's photo from 1967. The one where Eleanor looked young and determined and ready to change the world. Primera while kid Oberhai, I said. She turned, her eyes were red. Hi. We stood there in awkward silence. I didn't know, she said finally. I didn't know any of this. She tried to tell you. I know, I just, I didn't listen. She wiped her eyes. I thought she was just a retired bureaucrat. I thought the State Department thing was boring. I had no idea she was D. She gestured at the exhibit, at the fotos, at the evidence of a life lived in service of something bigger than herself. She was remarkable, I said, and I treated her like a burden. Victoria's voice cracked. When she fell and broke her hip, I told you we should put her in a facility. Do you remember what she said? She said she'd rather die. And I rolled my eyes. I said she was being dramatic. Victoria covered her face with her hands. God. Kate, what kind of daughter does that to a mother who sacrificed everything for her country? A daughter who didn't know what her mother had sacrificed? Because I never asked. I never cared enough to ask. I wanted to be angry. Part of me wanted to throw the court case in her face. Remind her how she'd tried to take everything, how she'd called me a manipulator. But standing there, looking at my grandmother's photograph, I just felt tired. You can know now, I said. That's what this exhibit is for. So people can know. It's too late. She's gone. Her story isn't gone. Her legacy isn't gone. You can honor it now, even if you didn't honor it when she was alive. Victoria looked at me. Do you hate me? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No. I don't hate you. I'm disappointed in you. I'm sad that you missed the chance to know someone extraordinary, but I don't hate you. Do you forgive me for the court case, for trying to take everything? I understand why you did it. You saw money and you felt entitled to it. That's human nature. That's not forgiveness. No, it's not. But it's understanding. Maybe that's enough. She nodded slowly, looked back at the exhibit. What was Operation Nightshade? She asked quietly. I can't tell you. Will it ever be declassified? Maybe. In 30 years. 40 years after everyone involved is dead and the methods are obsolete. But you know what it was? Grandma told me. Because I sat with her every day for 3 years and listened to her stories. Because I cared about who she was, not just what she had. Victoria winced. I'm sorry, she said. For everything. For how I treated her. For how I treated you. You deserved better. So did she. I know. We stood there for a few more minutes, looking at photographs of a woman we'd both known, but only one of us had understood. Then Victoria left. And I stayed, because this was my place now. Keeper of secrets. Teller of stories. Guardian of a legacy that mattered. 5 years later, I'm 38 now. I still work at the National Security Archive. I'm the curator of our Cold War collection. The house in Virginia is still mine. I've kept my grandmother's garden exactly as she maintained it, roses and vegetables, in summer. The vault beneath the garden shed is still there, still locked, still containing materials that won't be declassified for decades. But some materials have been declassified, and I've been working with CIA historians to tell the stories that can be told. Last month, Operation Nightshade was partially declassified. 53 years after it occurred, just enough information was released to confirm what my grandmother had told me. It was a signals intelligence operation conducted in East Berlin in 1971. Eleanor Hartley had been the lead officer. The operation had prevented a major security breach and saved the lives of 17 American assets, operating in the Soviet Union. She'd never been publicly recognized for it, never received a medal she could show anyone, never told her own daughter, but she'd told me. And now, finally, the world could know. The CIA held a small ceremony honoring the officers who'd participated in Operation Night. Most were there. A few were still alive, elderly and frail, brought in wheelchairs to finally be recognized for work they'd done half a century ago. I attended as Eleanor Hartley's representative. I accepted a commendation on her behalf, and I gave a speech about what it meant to keep secrets. To sacrifice recognition for security, to serve in silence. Victoria came to the ceremony, sat in the back, didn't speak to me, but afterward, she sent me a message. Thank you for telling her story. She deserved to be known. I didn't respond. But I saved the message. I still have the $3.4 million my grandmother left me. Most of it is invested. Some of it funds scholarships for intelligence studies students. Some of it supports the National Security Archives work. I bought a small condo in D.C. Nothing fancy, just a place that's mine. I used the rest to travel to the places my grandmother served. Prague, Warsaw, Berlin, Moscow. In each city, I stand where she stood. I imagine what it was like to operate in enemy territory, knowing that discovery meant death. I tried to understand the courage that took, and I document it. I write it down. I photographed the buildings, the streets, the cafes where dead drops happened, and assets were recruited. I tell her story. Because that's what she asked me to do. And because she deserves to be remembered as more than just someone's grandmother, more than just a woman who left money to the granddaughter instead of the daughter. She deserves to be remembered as Eleanor Hartley, intelligence officer, Cold War warrior, silent hero, the woman who mattered. Epilogue. Last week, I got a call from Victoria, the first time we'd spoken in 4 years. Kate, it's me. Hi. I'm writing a book about Mom. About her service. About what I missed. She paused. I was hoping you could help. Maybe share some of the stories she told you. Help me understand who she really was. I thought about it. Why now? I asked. Why, after all these years? Because I have a daughter now. She's 2, and I keep thinking about what I am going to tell her about her grandmother when she's old enough to ask. I don't want to tell her I didn't know. I don't want to pass down that same ignorance. You want to tell her Eleanor's story? I want to tell her the truth, that her grandmother was extraordinary, and that I was too stupid to see it while she was alive. I looked out my window at the city my grandmother had once operated in, gathering intelligence that helped end the Cold War. Okay, I said. I'll help. Really? On one condition: you don't write this to profit from her story, you write it to honor her memory. All proceeds go to charities that support intelligence community families. Done. Absolutely done. We talked for 2 hours. I told her some of what I knew. Not everything. Some things are still classified, and some things were just between me and Grandma Eleanor. But I told her enough to help Victoria understand what she'd lost, enough to help her daughter understand what her great-grandmother had been, enough to keep the story alive. Because that's what matters. Not the money. Not the estate. Not who won the court case. What matters is that Eleanor Hartley's story gets told, that people know she existed, that she served, that she mattered, and that somewhere, in a garden in Virginia, there's a vault full of secrets that will someday be history. Secrets I'll guard until they're ready to be known, because that's what she trusted me to do, and I won't let her down.